Happy Tuesday and welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. It's not just any Tuesday as we start as Veterans Day. Before we get to any sports, we want to make sure to say thank you. Thank you to everybody that has served, that is serving, that will serve. Thank you to every family that's been impacted by the decision to serve. We get to do this because incredible people fought for our freedom. That is not lost on us. Today is a great day to buy coffee for a vet, to talk to a veteran, to ask a vet to tell you a great story. And if you don't have any in your life, today's a great day to get involved in places like Wounded Warrior that do so much for vets when they come home. So we start by graciously saying thank you before we get to any sports. So now we will get to the day that we have ahead of us. Obviously, Monday Night Football reaction to come. But before we get to any of that, Caroline, let's start with your big point. What's on your mind? 3 points. What's on your mind first, my friend?
News updates.
Very well said by you. Some news in the NFL. Joe Burrow is back at practice. He was limited in Bengals practice on Monday as he works to return from a turf toe injury that has left him sidelined since week 2. So officially, his 21-day window to return is officially open. And reports say that the Bengals are eyeing that Thanksgiving Day matchup against the Ravens as Joe Burrow's day to return. Now, the Bengals play the Steelers this weekend, and all reports say Joe Burrow will not be available and will not play against the Steelers on Sunday. But the Bengals have 2 meetings upcoming with the Ravens. They have a second game against the Browns in the season finale. They already have a win over the divisional Steelers. They already have a win over the divisional Browns. Look, it's going to be an uphill climb, but Joe Burrow said the division is wide open. Looking at their schedule, yeah, you absolutely could make the point that the Browns, the Bengals, the Browns do not control their own destiny. The Bengals, in fact, though, do control their own destiny. Again, like I said, it's an uphill climb for this team and for Joe Burrow himself, but that counts, and I will not count out Joe Burrow.
Oh, I just want it injected in my veins. Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, Burrow walks back on the field, dramatic music playing. I love it. All right, I will get to my first point of the day, and it comes in the form of a wild night in the NBA. Look at this, 11-30-plus scores, 6 games decided by 5 or less, 4 go-ahead baskets in the final minute. There's a ton of reasons why it was a great night, and we're going to dig into some of them right now. Let's start with Wemby. Should I call it the Windy City or the Wemby City? After what happened last night, Victor Wembanyama, look at this. He shakes, he bakes, he tosses this up, put the biscuit in the basket, goes right up in there. That's a game-winning three-pointer that ends the Bulls' night and continues what is a hot start for the San Antonio Spurs. And just when you thought that couldn't be outdone, we've got more action for you. How about this? Donovan Mitchell goes around. He's going to take this. He's going to run back. He's going to turn around. Boom. Spider-Man does whatever Spider-Man can. And you think, oh, my God, look at that. That is going to be a crazy way for this game to end, but not so fast because you still have to play defense on the other side of the court. Look at that. Everybody thinks it's going to go to the – nope, right there. Swiggity-swooty went for the booty. There you got that basket, made it look easy, and all of a sudden, that's how you get an incredible game winner. And then you think, okay, now we can all breathe a sigh of relief. All of this is over. Nope. Bane goes full Batman here. Desmond Bane with a man on him, falling away, his body moving one direction, the ball moving the other, turns around and says, I would like to show you how a clutch game winner looks. That is an epic way for Orlando to beat Portland. Finally, now you can take your big sigh of relief. No, we're not done yet. Pistons right there. Look at this. Jenkins, what a shot that sends this game to overtime. And you would think that that's going to be the biggest story of the night. But it was not, because Cade Cunningham had a wild evening. Look at this, 46 points, 12 boards, 11 assists, 5 steals, 2 blocks, all of those incredible numbers. We won't talk about the fact that it took 45 shots. That's an actual fact. 45 shots to get those 46 points. We're just going to talk. Sometimes numbers don't matter. The number that matters here is a big win for the Pistons and a wild night in the NBA. Caroline, that brings us to our top point, the number 1 point in all the land. A Monday night defensive battle on Monday Night Football. Not all 10-7 games are created equal. A few nights ago, we watched disgusting Thursday Night Football that set the entire sport back decades by watching the Broncos and the Raiders with inept offense. Last night, I watched 2 incredible defenses. Just this, I know it's an overused adage, but man, Caroline, it felt to me like a heavyweight fight where you were just watching these lumbering, massive body blow after body blow. It was, to me, electric defensive football.
Yeah, we've had very little offense on primetime television on national TV. And
That is
for all
true.
of you defensive minded old heads out there, this is like a football buffet. Like, you just can't get enough of it. But for some new age football fans like the Cliff Kingsburys and the Lane Kiffins of the world, it was probably like, ew, get this off of my screen. Now, I think that both things can be true, that these were two elite defenses on display. And there's also some offensive concerns. Those two things aren't always true, but I think it was true about last night. But I first want to focus defensively, because one of my biggest takeaways from last night is, mama, there goes that man Howie Roseman again. Because my goodness, how Howie Roseman gets away with doing any deals in the National Football League is beyond me. Because we saw Jalen Phillips' Eagles debut, first game that he's playing in an Eagles uniform since being traded from the Miami Dolphins right at the trade deadline. And let me read this to make sure that I get all of this correct about Jalen Phillips' debut in Philadelphia. A forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 8 pressures, 7 hurries, 6 tackles, 6 stops, and a near 20% pressure rate. He also got the game ball last night. I mean, credit to Jalen Phillips for his instant impact on this defense that was already a championship level defense, but also credit to Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia, for not being afraid to give Jalen Phillips opportunity in just his first game. Ramping up period who? No, we want you to be part of our defense. We think we can win a championship with Jalen Phillips as an addition to this defense, and Vic Fangio didn't waste any time getting him involved. Credit to that Philly defense that was already championship level and now is even scarier.
But also, this is such a huge reminder when you look at your favorite team and they're broken, and everybody wants to turn around and say, oh, a bunch of bums, we suck, blah, blah, blah. Culture matters. Coaching matters. Systems matter. The entirety of the roster matters. Like Jalen Phillips just walking into this thing and becoming such a huge part of a defense. Like, you see those guys there. The way the Eagles were flying around to the football last night was just a reminder of where their strength is. We are, as a society, offensively obsessed, and that's fine. We can all just admit that. But it's also okay to admit that sometimes what we miss because of that is the strength of certain teams. Like, we want to talk about the drama of the Eagles and what's going on with AJ and whether or not the passing game's right, blah, 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 blah. What I watched last night, like, Quinyon Mitchell is just, he's Velcro. I don't know how you get open against Quinyon Mitchell. You see Cooper DeJean right there. The way that he just explodes to where the ball is going to be is incredible to watch. You saw an Eagles defense that was faster than everybody last night. That was explosive. And the Packers defense came to play too. I want to give the Packers defense credit in this, but I just kept watching the Eagles saying, I was laughing watching the game thinking, this is a team we're talking about being broken because all we care about is the wrong side of the football. The Eagles showed us last year that the reason they were going to win the Super Bowl one way or the other was because their defense was just more than the Chiefs could handle. Last night, the Eagles were more than anybody could handle. And this is just, you're right. From now on, any single GM that comes into their owner and says, got to trade. All right, we're going to make a trade. Oh, really? Who are we trading with? We're trading with Philadelphia. Just fire the guy. Fire the guy on the spot. If the guy that works as your GM has not figured out that he is not going to outdo Howie Roseman in a trade, shouldn't run your team anymore. Like, it's like the old Looney Tunes duel thing where, Bugs Bunny takes off a glove and slaps you in the face. That's what I want to do to every GM that makes a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles, because you are not better at your job than Howie Roseman is at his. Just across the board blanket, Howie Roseman's the best that's doing it. You should not trade with him. The Eagles reminded you of that last night.
1000%. But now that we've said so many nice things about the Eagles, can I be mean for a second?
Oh, yes, please.
What the hell is Nick Sirianni doing going for it on 4th and 6 with 30 seconds left on the clock? What are we doing? I was yelling at my TV like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Nick, don't do it, Nick. Don't you dare do it, Nick. So first of all, going back to that third down play, 3rd and 7, and you run it for the 3rd consecutive time. How many times did either of these teams run it on 3rd and 5 or more last night? Like, oh, frustrating. And then on 4th and 6 at the Green Bay 35, all Philadelphia has to do is punt. Pin the Packers deep. That would take off, 5 to 10 seconds off the clock. Now, let's be generous here. Let's say the Green Bay Packers have 25 to 30 seconds left on the clock, and they're pinned deep into their own territory. Green Bay hasn't been able to move the ball all game long. Jordan Love looked kind of, disoriented for a majority of that game. The Packers put up 7 points at that point in the game. All you have to do, punt, pin them deep. The Packers aren't going to be able to get to any point where they're going to be able to put up some points. Game over. Eagles win. Nobody has to stress. But no. Nick Sirianni has to go for it on 4th and 6. Going for it at all, I think, was criminal. But that play call on 4th down made it somehow even worse. Because if you're going to go for it on 4th and 6, at least run a play that has a higher likelihood of converting than lobbing it downfield to A.J. Brown, who's in double coverage when he's gotten, 2 targets all game long? So then Green Bay gets the ball at their own 35. They really only need a first down and a half in order to find themselves in field goal range. So obviously the Green Bay Packers, they missed the field goal, Eagles win. But there was a chance, there was a possibility, if not even a probability, that the Packers were able to kick a field goal and take that game to overtime. And maybe we're talking about a completely different game today. I just thought deciding to go for it on 4th and 6, it wasn't risky. It wasn't, I'm going to say a word that I can't say. Took a lot of guts. There we go. That's the word. That wasn't a gutsy play. That was just a stupid decision to go for it on 4th.
I completely disagree. Look, the situation, I loved it. I loved the play call. I loved everything about it. I'm the one guy on Twitter that's out here loving it. It was 4th and 6 from the Green Bay 35, right? So if you punt it, right, and it rolls into the end zone, what are you getting there? You're getting a net 15 yards, right? You're getting a net 15 yards. It was too long to be a makeable field goal. They didn't trust the field conditions, is what Sirianni said there. If you punt it, it's probably going into the end zone. So you're netting a total of 15 yards. So now it's like, well, hell, might as well go for it. And if I'm going to go for it at that point, but I agree with you. I trust my defense. My defense is going to be like, it's a 15-yard difference. If I punt it or I don't punt it is a 15-yard defense. I'm going to trust my defense. 15-yard difference. I'm going to trust my defense to hold up for that. So now I've got the play call. Well, we see this all the time now on 4th down. You're seeing more and more coaches presume that everybody's going to play up to the sticks, so they take a shot. Taking a shot on 4th down, I think, has become more and more commonplace. So to me, you're taking a shot on, I know A.J. Brown hasn't gotten the touches everybody wants and blah, 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 blah. But, he's still A.J. Brown. It's not like he's, your 4th-string wide receiver on the New Orleans Saints. He's A.J. Brown. So you got a shot. You take it to one of the best wide receivers in the game, at least in theory. You take it, at very least, he's your second-best target. You take the shot. It's your second-best target. You're hoping that their defense is going to be asleep, and all it costs you is 15 yards. If Sirianni hits on it, we're going to turn around and be like, oh, what a play call. What? I love the aggressiveness. I'm going to credit the math. I think when you do the math, at worst, it was a 15-yard loss, and at best, it was a game-winning touchdown. I liked the play. The play call I liked less was the 4th and 1 that came after that for the Green Bay Packers, where I don't know if anyone has seen this replay. They showed it on ESPN this morning on SportsCenter. But as they're lining up for 4th and short, and Jordan Love is in shotgun, you can literally hear one of the defensive linemen for the Philadelphia Eagles start screaming, inside zone, run left. And you know what the Packers did? They ran inside zone, run left. They didn't even try to change it. They dumped Josh Jacobs for a 3-yard loss that turned into a fumble that sealed the game. I hate a 4th down call that's wildly transparent more than a 4th down risk when I only have 15 yards to lose.
I think you're crazy, first of all, because it's a 15-yard defense. Every yard was hard. 15-yard difference. Every yard was hard to come by for both of these teams last night. So a 15-yard difference in that game feels so much more substantial than maybe an offensive shootout. If this was like a 38-35 kind of game, maybe it wouldn't have bothered me as much as the kind of game that we had last night. And I don't always subscribe to the analytics. I feel like analytics are a tool and not a map. It shouldn't tell you what to do. It should just be another, tool at your disposal. Even the analytics said, no, pump that ball away. But I thought that the Eagles going forward on 4th was, you could make an argument if the Eagles lost that game, so bad it could have been a fireable offense. I didn't mind the Packers' decision to go for it on 4th. on that possession before the Eagles got the ball back. I really didn't mind the decision. I'm with you, though. I didn't love the play call. I didn't love the play calling in totality last night for the Green Bay Packers. Because like I said at the beginning of my point, I think two things can be true. Two great defenses and two offenses that I think are kind of struggling to find a consistent identity. What's the Packers' identity? Like when you step back, I know what the Eagles want to do and how they want to win football games. What's the Packers' offensive identity? Because sometimes we can see Jordan Love slinging it. Sometimes we can see Josh Jacobs running the ball really well. But at times, like we saw against the Carolina Panthers in the second half, and like we saw for 4 quarters yesterday, it just felt like it was an offense that was so stagnant and hesitant at times. And I don't know what that is, Fitz. I don't know if it's Jordan Love not trusting himself. I don't know if it's Matt LaFleur not trusting Jordan Love. I don't know if there's just not a whole lot of trust in this offensive line. And obviously, maybe some trust concerns made worse when you lose your left guard for the game last night, early in that game. Overall, though, it just felt like a very, tepid offense last night for the Green Bay Packers.
It's tepid because we still don't know what Jordan Love is. Like, to your point, the offense, Josh Jacobs is one of the better running backs in the NFL. We know how this offense should run, but we don't know if Jordan Love is actually any good. And to me right now, like, look, as a kid that grew up, broke, sometimes you drink, Diet Dr. K instead of Diet Dr. Pepper, right? Like that's what Jordan Love is. Like he's like, he's not the name brand soda, but he's like pretty close. He's like kind of a knockoff soda. It's good enough when you need him in a pinch. That's where Jordan Love is so far. Like, I don't think that Jordan Love has shown us anything consistently throughout the entirety of his career. Like, I understand there's been pockets. There's been, 6 or 7 games where you look at it and say, yeah, that's the thing. But like whatever we expect the meteoric leap to be for Jordan Love, we haven't seen it. We've seen Jordan Love sort of plateau, and he'll have these moments where he looks like an MVP, and then he'll have these moments where he looks like he's just a mid to low mid starter in the NFL. The number we saw earlier that they brought up that I think is important, in 3 losses, the Packers have given up 13, 16, and 10 points in 3 losses. Like the 3 teams that have beat the Packers scored 13, 16, and 10, which means if your offense had scored 14, 17, and 11 in those respective games, you wouldn't have a loss. Like, that's just how mid Jordan Love is. Like, Jordan Love is the king of mediocrity right now. And there are flashes and moments where it looks great, and there are flashes and moments where it looks terrible. And when you want to figure out what the difference is between the Jordan Loves versus the Patrick Mahomes and the Josh Allens of the world, the difference is consistently being great. Jordan Love has not shown us that at all. We'll get into consistently great coming up next, though. Jori Epstein going to join us. We'll get her thoughts on all things happening in New York. They fired their head coach. Why and what's next? We'll figure that out. Giants say Joe Schoen remains GM and will lead the search for a new head coach. John Mara, quote, "We feel like Joe has assembled a good young nucleus of talent, and we look forward to its development. Unfortunately, the results over the past 3 years have not been what any of us want." That was tweeted out by Jori Epstein, who joins us right now. You can watch her on Inside Coverage. You can read her across Yahoo Sports. One of the best in the business. All right, so just tell me this straight out. Why now, Jori? That's what I'm trying to make sense of. Why now to fire Daboll? All right, I think, one second. I think we've got you. We have you, Jori. We'll try this again. Why now? We're not hearing Jori. We'll work on this. We'll get technology is
live
kicking our butts,
television,
but we'll get it figured out. Yeah, this is look. I'll never forget the time everything went haywire when I was hosting Outside the Lines. It happens, right? So the question for me, Caroline, is why now? Because I'm trying to figure out what the benefit is, right? This late in the season, this point in the season, I'm not sure what difference we're making. Oh, we're bringing Jori back. We may have her now. So, Jori, let's try. Yes, we can hear you now. Why now?
She's back.
Look at that.
Let's
Why?
go.
Why now? Can you hear me? And why now? Did the Giants fire head coach Brian Daboll? I think that why now is because you can't keep going on the road having 10-plus point leads late into the game, and then all of a sudden you are losing these games. I think you can't. Why now is because you can't keep risking the health of your franchise quarterback, which I would say they were doing in Jackson Dart. I'm not saying this was malicious. I'm not saying nobody cared, but I think that you could either say Brian Daboll, Jackson Dart, great energy fit. They both have the swagger. They both have the toughness. They're both going to quite literally run through a wall, and Cam Scadaboo as well, to do what it needs to be, done to get this win. Or you could say, well, maybe we need a coach who's going to hold Jackson Dart responsible for what he's doing and kind of rein him in. And so I think when you look at it, you say the Giants were tired of losing, they were tired of blowing big leads, and they were tired of their franchise quarterback looking like he could be at the end of his career from a health standpoint routinely.
That is so true with the three of them, Daboll, Dart, and Scadaboo. It's like a monster truck rally. Like there is like the energy, the testosterone between those three. But, you know, the fair question, the question that I had was why now? And another question I had was going back to your tweet that we brought in with, and it was why not Joe Schoen? And then also we can talk about the amount of double-digit leads that were blown by the New York Giants. So why not defensive coordinator Shane Bowen? Why is it just Brian Daboll that has fallen on the sword?
Yeah, it's a great question, Caroline. And I would say with most firings in the league, I feel like we have a question of like, how did that person become the scapegoat? Like someone needed to be the scapegoat. Why that person? I do think you could say, well, you have someone else who's calling plays. You have someone else who's calling the defense. There's usually someone you want to pin it on. In terms of general manager Joe Schoen, in this league, if you find a quarterback, you are like untouchable, at least for a period of time. And I could be eating my words on Joe Schoen in January, and we'll get to that in a second. But I look at Tom Telesco, which Fitz, you know quite well as a Raiders fan. Chargers GM didn't have a lot of playoff success or anything, but found Justin Herbert. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, you found a quarterback, so you're going to get your next job. And then you start looking, you say, okay, well, what about some of these other GMs that otherwise assembled a team but couldn't answer the quarterback question? And they often don't have that. So I think Joe Schoen landing on Jackson Dart is why he's keeping it. I'm still interested because, you know, Adam Schefter, someone had sent me his tweet yesterday on Monday, and they're like, you know, Joe Schoen will remain as the GM and oversee the head coaching search. Well, the exact language, and maybe this is just semantics, of the statement was he remains. I believe he is GM for the next 3 months, and I'm curious to see, well, what if you have a Ben Johnson type, and I know no one else is on the market quite like that this year, who says, well, I want to pick my own GM. Then is Joe Schoen still safe? He might be, but I think it'll be interesting to determine.
All right, so you mentioned a Ben Johnson type. Let's get into some of the people that maybe we think would make sense. So are there coaches like let's look at some guys with previous head coaching experience. Like the one sort of dot everyone's trying to connect is Belichick. Do you think there's a path that leads Bill Belichick to becoming the next head coach of the New York Giants?
Yeah, it's funny because I asked someone 2 weeks ago, long before this job was open and when we didn't even know if this job was open, do you think Belichick's going to get a crack at the NFL level? And their response was, if someone gives him an interview, that would be the New York Giants because he was their defensive coordinator because of the success that he had. I think what's most interesting to me is you don't have to go through the NFL process of worrying about tampering and saying, hey, at the end of the season, we'd like to put in an interview request. This is a Wild West when you come to the college coaches who could enter the NFL sphere, because he could have already talked to the Giants yesterday and they could gauge that level of interest without us even knowing. And so do I think they will have at least one conversation? Why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you have that due diligence? Do I think it'll end up in that regard? I don't think so, but I don't think we should count it out.
And another name that's maybe not the sexiest name on the market, but has won a ton of games in the NFL and could maybe provide some stability for Jackson Dart. What about Mike McCarthy?
Mike McCarthy is interesting, and I agree with you. I think that in terms of quarterback development, yes, you could say what he did with Aaron Rodgers, but he did a great job with Dak Prescott. He's done a great job with multiple quarterbacks. Like, there are some coaches who, okay, we only saw them do it with Patrick Mahomes, or we only saw them do it with Josh Allen. I would not put Mike McCarthy in that category. I do think he's someone who should deserve consideration, and I also think that if you're the Maras and you're a little more traditional, Mike McCarthy has proven what you want to see. But I'd be curious what staff he assembles, especially given where he is in his career.
Stick with McCarthy for a second, Jori, then, because certainly Caroline and I both worked a lot in Nashville, and his name comes up around the Titans job too. Is the Giants job for somebody like McCarthy, is it more appealing than the Titans? I mean, they both have a young quarterback. Giants have a better roster. I'm trying to figure out how it ranks.
Yeah, I think that the Giants job is absolutely considered more attractive to the Titans job because I think, one, Jackson Dart is currently a more proven commodity than Cam Ward. Obviously, as we've seen with the 2024 draft class, what Drake May is doing this year, how Jaden Daniels got injured, that can change. But at this point, of the rookies, we should feel a lot safer on Jackson Dart than we do Cam Ward. On top of that, I don't think it's a big secret that Amy Adams-Strunk is not the most patient or stable of owners, and the Giants do have that reputation. So I would say the Giants have a better roster. The quarterback answer, it seems, which is what all coaches most want, and an ownership group that you should feel like a little more confident that they're going to give you the reign to go do your job.
I'm glad that Fitz brought up the Titans, because before we get into some other coaching candidates, I feel like these two openings will be compared a lot. Obviously, two young quarterbacks, two openings. Do you think both the Titans and the Giants should be narrowing their focus on only offensive-minded head coaches?
It's a great question. And to me, I think what's interesting is I love what the Patriots did. I think clearly Mike Vrabel's been a great head coach, but what they also did is they brought in an offensive coordinator with proven experience who is unlikely to leave to become a head coach because he's already done that multiple times and it hasn't worked out. And so my biggest concern, if you bring in a defensive or a special teams coach, hello, John Harbaugh, if that doesn't work again, we're trending towards him staying in Baltimore, but there was some conversation earlier in the year of, hey, well, if he wants one thing and Lamar wants another thing, what are the Ravens going to do? I think I would want to have some sort of continuity plan for my quarterback that if one guy leaves, we're going to have it in place. And I would even say in Washington, Dan Quinn did that, where he said, okay, I have Cliff Kingsbury. I should get him for at least a couple of years. But he had like 4 other people, including Brian Johnson, who had called plays on that staff, who could keep the language the same for the quarterback. So I don't think we need an offensive coach. And I think the Giants historically have not only gone offensive coach, but you need to have a plan for offensive continuity if your head coach is not calling your offensive plays.
So you mentioned the name Cliff Kingsbury, and let's go there now, because certainly he's got to be we've talked so much, Jori, about even on Inside Coverage about the development of Jaden Daniels, right? Like, so where's Cliff sort of land in this search for the Giants or anybody?
Yeah, I think that going into the season, I thought the Washington Commanders were going to need another offensive coordinator. As mentioned, they could have gone inside their building. And I think at this point, given Jaden's health and what that offensive does, I think they've got Cliff another year. Now, he should get interviews, but I don't know. I also don't think that Cliff is going to take a job he doesn't feel fantastic about. Like, yeah, if you're telling me go get Justin Herbert or something, maybe he would take that job. I don't really think that Cliff is going to feel like that's a better job than his current job, but we'll see. I think he gets interviews. I don't think he leaves Washington yet.
And one name that we've heard a lot being kind of swirled around by some insiders is Antonio Pierce. Yes, he has NFL head coaching experience. Obviously, he has the ties to the New York Giants. Looks like he will be getting an interview in New York. What do you think is the likelihood that Antonio Pierce could get this head job?
I agree that he definitely, like, he was another one when I was hearing that Belichick stuff a couple weeks ago that said Antonio Pierce to the Giants. That was something we should keep an eye out for. I think he gets the interview. I think it would be hard to sell to the fan base. I'm curious if you guys feel differently. And I also think that even though you can interview him earlier than you can interview some of the candidates who are coaching for other teams right now, I don't think the Giants would say, all right, we're just not going to go interview those guys because Antonio Pierce is available. I definitely don't expect that to be how this unfolds.
Yeah, and I will just say that Antonio Pierce is going to rock the interview because that's what he does. Everybody loves him when they sit down and talk to him. But the things that I heard about the change from Antonio Pierce from when he went from interim coach to full-time head coach and some of the ways that he ran his organization, I'm telling you, if I was a Giants fan, I wouldn't feel good about that being that situation being my next head coach at all. What about let's get the college one in because we have to do like Jackson Dart, head coach in the opening. ... Lane Kiffin, right? Lane Kiffin's going to be the next head coach of the Giants. Lane Kiffin is going to have every new head coaching job in college football and the NFL all at once, Jori. It's going to be sensational. Lane to the Giants. What say you?
I don't see that, but I do think you are correct, Fitz, that we are going to see college coaches. Again, when I was talking to people trying to get a sense of this landscape after the Titans fired Brian Callahan, my question was like, who are going to be these head coaches? Because Joe Brady in Buffalo, we think he's probably going to get something. Jeff Hafley in Green Bay, their defensive coordinator, he seems like he's going to be a hot candidate. There is not the number of hot candidates at the NFL level that there are likely to be openings, but the names I was hearing was more, Matt Campbell, a Marcus Freeman, Dan Lanning. Like those were the names I was hearing before I was hearing Lane Kiffin.
Okay, let's go back to one name that you just mentioned. Do the Giants go back to the Buffalo Bills and get Joe Brady?
Right, and I think that Joe Shane staying on for that search definitely makes me feel like it's even more likely because even if they didn't specifically overlap, you think that he hasn't been paying attention to what's happening in Buffalo. Now, again, you have to ask yourself, well, Brian Daboll with Josh Allen, different than Brian Daboll without Josh Allen. But I do think Joe Brady's track record is a little more varied than that.
Do we see a Daboll return to Buffalo in that scenario? Like, does Daboll end up being Josh McDaniels? He's just going back home?
It's a great question. I would not be surprised. I think that would probably be the best case scenario for all parties is that you get Joe Brady in the house, you get new blood, you get kind of that model that Joe Shane is familiar with, and then Daboll is still a great play caller. He has that ability to go back to Josh Allen. I mean, if I'm Brian Daboll and I'm offered the offensive coordinator job in the part of the country that I'm from with a quarterback who just won MVP, how do you say no to that?
That's you're right. You're right, Joe. All right, before we get you out of here real quick, do you have is it way too early? If I had to ask you today who you think the actual next head coach is, do you have a guess? Do you have a suspicion?
I do think Joe Brady is my front runner favorite, but I'm interested to see what all they do and what kind of roads they go down.
Oh, that's what makes you the best, Jori. You can watch her on Inside Coverage all the time. Absolutely killing it there. And read her on Yahoo Sports. She's the best. Jori Epstein joining us, hanging out with us. Thanks for all the insight, my friend.
Great to see you guys, Fitz and Caroline.
You're the best, Jori. Thank you.
Jori making us smarter and getting us to break down. Coming up, we're going to get some college football rankings tonight. But we're going to tell you ahead of that some dark horses you should keep an eye on that could actually win the whole dang thing. New college football playoff bracketology via Andy Staples. He's got Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Indiana, Alabama all getting the bye. But how about the teams that could sneak into the national championship conversation and unseat one of those favorites? We're talking dark horses, baby. Let's get to it, Caroline. All right, so we're looking at the bracket here. You see how this thing looks. Tulane, by the way, sneaking in as the 12 seed in this bracket. Georgia Tech sneaking in as the 11 seed in there. So there we go. First four out, you see BYU, Oklahoma. Got some decent brands in there that didn't make this thing. But talk to me about a dark horse. Somebody in this situation that you think could challenge for the national championship that is not one of the bye teams.
Hear me out here on calling this team a dark horse. I understand the irony of that, but with how good this team has been, I don't think that they've been talked about nearly enough. And that's Georgia. We're not talking about Georgia. Georgia, who won back-to-back national championships not that long ago. Georgia, who has one of the best, if not the best, head coaches in college football. And look, Georgia hasn't been overly sexy all season long. They're just finding ways to win. And I think that might be even more impressive, or just as impressive, I should say, as blowing teams out 100-0. Because Georgia, no matter what, can find a way to win, whether it's a high-scoring affair that goes into overtime on the road at Tennessee, 44-41, or it's a low-scoring kind of slugfest defense, grinded out game on the road at Auburn. Georgia just finds a way to win. They don't shoot themselves in the foot. They don't commit dumb penalties. They don't turn the football over. In fact, they're maybe one of the best teams at capitalizing on other teams' mistakes. Gunnar Stockton is only getting better week over week. Georgia's run game is getting better week over week, and they are elite defensively. We're not talking enough about Georgia, but they get all of the benefit of the doubt in my mind just because of their head coach and what they've been able to do. And they've just been flying under the radar, in my opinion. I think we need to be talking about Georgia in the national title conversation just as much as we're talking about Ohio State.
It's interesting because I do feel dirty calling Georgia a dark horse, but your
Doesn't it feel
statement,
weird?
It feels weird, but you're right. It feels like they've been a little invisible this year. And I'm a fan of college football teams that we allow the grace to get better over the course of the season, honestly. And that's something that, Stephen Godfrey mentioned yesterday, that Ohio State sort of managed to slow play the growth of Julian Sayin in a really smart way. I think at some point, the problem for so many of us is early in the season, you see something and that becomes the thing that you judge everything by for the rest of the year. Gunnar Stockton was not somebody I trusted early part of the season, but you're 1,000% right. He's gotten so much faster in the way he's reading and the decision making. It feels like he's more comfortable. It feels like he's more confident. It stuns me to sit here and say this, but right now, neutral field, like we see the odds there plus 1,000, and that's a little stunning to me, because do we really think that there's that huge gap? Is there that much delineation between where we are on the fourth best team in the country, whoever you might have it be today, versus Georgia? I have a hard time seeing that much of a difference. So, Caroline, I actually kind of love this call. And the funny thing is, I'm going to give you a dark horse, okay? But I'm going to start this statement the same way. When you started talking about it, I was like, oh, she's going to steal my dark horse. Like, there's this moment of, I can't believe I'm calling this team a dark horse. And I can't believe we're not paying attention to this team enough. But when you talk about this team's ability to play really good defense and the way that they fly to the football, and like, we just need to stop for a second and pause what we think and reevaluate where we are. That's the math I do for Notre Dame. Like, especially given the development for Carr as a passer that we've seen so far throughout the course of this postseason, there's a difference between our two dark horses. Kirby Smart gets a distinct advantage because we've seen him win a national championship. But Marcus Freeman doesn't typically struggle in the games that he should struggle in. He struggles in the games against cupcakes, right? So Freeman, the coach, in a big game, I trust. Notre Dame got a lot of big game playoff experience last year, which I think matters going into managing the playoffs this year. The expanded playoffs still require so much management and understanding when your off days are, what your travel days look like, how you're going to practice your routine, all of these things. Notre Dame got a lot of experience through that process last year, and this defense is swarming. God, they're so fast. They're so athletic. They push the line of scrimmage. I love it. Not to mention, they've got some stars on the offensive side of the ball. I'm buying.
Yeah, I love Fitz. We're having some technical difficulties here, but I love Fitz's pick with Notre Dame. Now, the one hesitation that I would have with Notre Dame is in order to be a national title contender, I think you have to beat national title contenders. And the two, national title contender looking teams or the two playoff teams that Notre Dame has played so far this season, they lost to. That was Miami in week 1 and then Texas A&M at home. Now, that was an incredibly close Texas A&M team, and that's a Texas A&M team that looks like they might be one of the best teams in the country. But to fit this point, we should let teams get better throughout the course of the season. And maybe we saw a better Notre Dame team against USC, who is right on the bubble of making the college football playoff in the form of a 10-point victory. But I think one thing, Fitz, that gives me a whole lot of excitement and optimism for this Notre Dame team. It's not CJ Carr in the way that he's gotten better week over week, even though he has. It's not Marcus Freeman, who is one of the hottest coaching candidates in the country, who beat Kirby Smart last year in the playoffs, out-tacticianed Kirby Smart, out-coached him, outsmarted him last year in the playoffs. It's Jeremiah Love. It is the Heisman Trophy candidate, Jeremiah Love, who just is so incredibly explosive and so difficult to stop. I don't know how many people watched the Notre Dame Navy game last week, but there was one play last week where a Navy defender wrapped up and kind of rolled Jeremiah Love over. But what Jeremiah Love did was roll right over the defender's body, didn't touch the ground, popped right back up for a touchdown. Heisman moment kind of stuff from Jeremiah Love. He's one of the most explosive and exciting players in college football that we're not talking enough about.
Well, and look, in this new version of college football that is more and more like the NFL, like it or not, that's the way it goes. The ability to run the football throughout the course of the playoffs is so important because you get so many games packed in close together and you're just the wear and tear on guys' bodies. There's still an adjustment. One thing we used to talk about 4 or 5 years ago was the rookie wall that rookies hit in the NFL about 12, 13 games into the season. They hit the rookie wall because that's what their body is used to, right? So now you've got teams getting used to the pounding that comes with a long playoff run, which means all of a sudden you're talking about 15, 16 game seasons, right? When you start talking about that many games, the ability to run the football in January is so important. Notre Dame has the ability to simply control the pace of a game with Jeremiah Love. It gives them a different advantage in controlling the physicality and controlling, again, the line of scrimmage, but then having just a beat you up, bruising running back that can do that also can outrun you in the process. There's such an advantage to this. I know we're a quarterback-obsessed society, and rightfully so. Like, it's hard to not have a conversation about the playoffs without talking about Julian Sayin and Ty Simpson and some of these great quarterbacks that are out there. But I still believe that the ability to run, just hand the football off and know that there are going to be positive yardage from it, that's such an advantage when you're talking about the third game that you're playing in the month of January.
Yeah, and I think that we saw last year that is a formula to winning a championship in today's college football, that we are so points obsessed. We are so air the ball out obsessed. But last year in the national championship game, we saw two teams between Ohio State and Notre Dame that had good, not great, not elite passer type of quarterbacks that could run the football with great offensive lines that played tough defensively. Like, that is a formula to success that we could see from Georgia, that we could see from Notre Dame. Again, this year that we could see from Ohio State, that if those teams go up against these high-flying, high-scoring type of offenses, what does it look like? I don't know. And I'm excited to see that unfold. Maybe the types of teams like Alabama that likes to air it out a little bit more in that Ryan Grubb offense when you have Ryan Williams, one of the most exciting young wide receivers in college football. But that's a formula to success, and we saw it on full display last season.
Well, from the contenders in college football, coming up next, let's take a look at some of the contenders and pretenders trying to work their way into the NFC Wild Card picture. We'll tell you about it next. Those are the odds to make the playoffs provided by BetMGM for some of the teams that are sitting right around that cusp of contender or pretender. And that's what we're going to figure out. The NFC Wild Card edition, it's going to be tightly contested. So there's basically one spot open the way we're looking at the playoffs to break out so far. And that one spot is going to be between a bunch of teams. So we're going to figure out contender or pretender. And we'll start with the shortest of those odds, San Francisco 49ers at 6-4, minus 325 to make the playoffs, according to BetMGM. Caroline, contender or pretender?
I just want to state for the record here, this is playoff contender, not Super Bowl contender. Playoff. So everybody calm down.
Playoffs?
Over there. Playoffs. So I think the San Francisco 49ers are definitely contenders, and it's for a couple of reasons. Yes, they're banged up, and I don't think that the defensive injuries that they've suffered are something that you can overcome. I really don't. That's why I don't think that the 49ers are legitimate Super Bowl contenders, but playoff contenders, absolutely. As long as Christian McCaffrey is healthy, knock on wood, because that's not always a guarantee for him or this team. But as long as Christian McCaffrey is running the rock the way that he is, we've seen Juwan Jennings come back from injury and be impactful for this team. Even if Brock Purdy isn't 100%, Mac Jones has shown us that he can come in and win games, and he can come in and execute that offense at least well enough to not make the dumb mistakes. And then if Brock Purdy comes back, well, then you have the guy that you trust in your starting quarterback coming back in. So I think even with injuries, there's enough talent on this team to win games. And also look at the 49ers schedule upcoming. I mean, they have the Cardinals, a team that they will be and should be favored in, and then the Panthers, and then they go to Cleveland, and then they have the Titans at home, and then, yes, they go to Indianapolis. That's a game that the Colts will be favored in and probably win, but then they wrap up the season with the Bears, and then the Seahawks, which is a game that they will probably lose. So let's just say the 49ers win the games that they are supposed to win upcoming on their schedule against the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Browns, the Titans, and, the Bears might be a pick 'em. At that point, you're 11-6 or 10-7. That's good enough to make the playoffs. So it's the schedule combined with the healthy talent that the 49ers have on their team right now.
I looked at the schedule, and that's why I wanted to make him a contender, but the injuries just make him a pretender to me. They're too up and down. And you mentioned, yes, they're a favorite against Cardinals. They also beat the Cardinals early in the season by 1. I don't know if the 49ers are actually any good this year. And so there have been little flashes where all right, yeah, things look okay, but it's never had the same rhythm that we're used to. It's never looked the way that we're used to, and injuries have been so much a huge part of that. I just don't think they've gotten that rhythm that gives me a lot of faith, even though, look, they should beat the Cardinals, but the way this NFL season's going, they should beat the Panthers. The way this NFL season's going, I don't know. So, I mean, look at this. Win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. That's just who they are. They're a week in and week out. I have no idea. All right, so I'm going to call them a pretender because I don't trust them, and I only get one spot. They're not the one that I choose to make this list. What about contender, pretender for the Bears? So does that mean you're a pretender for the Bears, who, by the way, have had the moxie of comeback win after comeback win after comeback win this year?
And that is awfully impressive, and that is wonderful, and I hope that everybody feels really good about themselves, and gold star for the Bears for finding ways to win. And I say that in a very patronizing tone. Seriously, credit to the Bears for finding ways to win, because I think finally Bears fans have a sense of hope and optimism, which has been lacking for a long time in Chicago. But this year, this edition of the Chicago Bears, I have to say that they're pretenders. The same way that the 49ers are wildly inconsistent, as we've seen some of those inconsistencies from the Chicago Bears. And then they still have to take on the Eagles, and they still go to Green Bay. They go to Green Bay and then have another game with the Packers upcoming. I don't trust the Packers. Talk about inconsistencies. I mean, my goodness, the Packers have been the face of inconsistency. But I'll take the Packers to beat the Bears in any matchup that they have upcoming left on their schedule. So overall, I think I do have to say that the Bears are pretenders because they're inconsistent, because Caleb Williams is still kind of coming along. I like what I've seen, but he's still kind of coming along. And because I think the NFC North is just super crowded.
I'd be more surprised by the Bears are pretenders, full on and full out, 100%.
They're pretenders.
Frankly, I'd be less surprised if the Bears ended up with 10 losses than if the Bears made the Bears schedule that's ahead of them coming up. The Vikings, the Eagles, nope. The Packers, nope. The Packers again, nope. The 49ers, probably not. The Lions, nope. Like, you just keep going. Like, it's loss after loss. Yeah, they get a couple of maybe, like they got the Browns in there. All right, cool. But look at their wins this year. They barely beat an awful, dreadful Raiders team on a weird block field goal. They barely beat the Commanders, who were a shell of themselves. They beat the Bengals in what was obviously a miracle win. They beat the Giants in what was one of the weirder football games that got a head coach fired. Like, they're what, 10 plays away max from being just one of the worst teams? They're pretenders. They're winning games, which is cool, but this is just part of the process of the Bears. Like, this is going to take multiple steps to get to where they want to be. So, yes, I understand.
And I think step one, though, is beating the bad teams. And that's what they're doing. Yeah. They're beating the Raiders, the Commanders, the Saints, the Bengals, and the Giants. Like, beating the bad teams is step one. If you can beat the bad teams but not the good teams, then you're probably not a good team. But it wasn't very long ago that the Bears couldn't even beat the bad teams. So I think that's the first step to improvement for the Chicago team. It doesn't come this year, but I'm excited. I'm optimistic about where Chicago can be over the next couple of seasons.
Every year for ESPN, Bill Barnwell does his advance where he looks at last year's metrics and what won't repeat itself. I think the weird ways that the Bears have won this year is not repeatable. I'm not really sure the Bears are on track to be where they want to be. I think the Bears have a long way to go, unfortunately. I want Caleb Williams to go out there and crush it. I'm not sure that Ben and Caleb are showing it yet. The Panthers, we were all ready to make the Panthers contenders last week, and then they went out and they kicked us in the no-no places. The Panthers are pretenders.
Yeah, you don't lose at home to the New Orleans Saints and get to call yourselves contenders. I mean, that Saints team is truly dreadful. The Panthers, I think, have been a really fun story because very similarly to the Bears, they've been winning some games in late game situations in weird and fluky ways. But I always say the weird and fluky wins count just the same as the dominant ones. But with the fluky wins and with the bad loss against the Saints that's so fresh in our minds, I have to say that the Carolina Panthers are pretenders. I also don't trust Bryce Young. I love Rico Dowdle. I really do. I love Rico the Freako. But I cannot trust Bryce Young enough to win enough games to be actual playoff contenders.
Well, and look over the course of this year, when they played the Patriots, who we all believe are a playoff team, right? 42-13, they lost that game. When they played the Bills, who we all believe is a playoff team, 40-9, they lost that game, right? So, yes, they beat the Packers 16-13, and that was a surprise. But honestly, when they played the best of the best, when they've played the contenders, they look like pretenders. And that in and of itself is enough for me to turn around and say, like, I think the Panthers are actually stuck in a really tough spot because they are getting better. But are they getting enough better that they believe that Bryce Young is going to be the answer and they have all the right things that they need to continue to build around? Like, I don't know. I don't know that they've seen any empirical evidence so far that makes me believe that Bryce Young is a franchise savior, or frankly, that most of what they're building there so far is going to take them suddenly into the same stratosphere as the elite. Like, as I say all the time, if you are a fan of a team that's really bad and you feel like you've turned the corner, I would just beg you, go watch a really good football team one Sunday. Don't watch your team and instead watch the actual contenders. And I think if you're a Panthers fan right now, say, whoa. We deserve respect in this conversation. My answer is, have you watched the Rams or the Seahawks this year at all? Like, because when you watch those teams, you see how far Carolina is away from being an actual contender. Let's get one more in. One more, Caroline Fenton. That would be the Minnesota Vikings. What say you? Contender, pretender?
Yeah, so right now where it stands in the NFC, there is one spot to fill in one of those wild card spots. So I picked the 49ers and I feel good about that. So I think the Vikings has to be pretenders. And a big part of that is because of JJ McCarthy. Look, credit to the Vikings for finding a way to win on the road at Detroit. That's a massive win for this team. But then you turn around and struggle against granted, a Ravens team that's getting healthier and better, but they still didn't show a whole lot to me to make me believe that this Vikings team can find themselves in the playoffs. Same thing that I said about the Bears. The NFC North is just crowded. It is the Packers and Lions NFC North. It is not the Vikings and the Bears division. So I have to say with JJ McCarthy, hot and cold and high and low, and can't trust him to be healthy, can't trust his availability, can't trust him overall to make this edition of the Vikings team a playoff contender. I do think more years under KOC, sure, yeah, I'll buy into that. This year, no.
This was the hardest one for me because I had to pick one. So I'm going to go with the Vikings as a contender, but I'm also willing to acknowledge everything you just said is so right. Part of this comes from where I am with JJ McCarthy. And, as we continue to talk, and I get asked all the time, is JJ McCarthy the answer? Blah, 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 blah. He's played 2.5 games of football as an NFL quarterback. 2.5 games, right? So I don't know. I want to believe in KOC so much that it doesn't matter. I just want to believe that KOC is going to be able to squeeze so much juice out of this thing that it's going to turn out to be absolutely incredible. And maybe that's why I'm giving so much benefit of the doubt to the coaching staff of the Vikings, defensively from coordination standpoint and offensively from that man right there, that part of me looks at this and says, man, it can't go that bad. Can it? Can it go that far off the rails? Now, acknowledging everything I said earlier about the Panthers, I could also say about the Vikings. When they played good teams, mostly they've lost. The Lions is sort of the exception to that rule. And it's brutal for them. They got the Bears, the Packers, the Seahawks, the Lions, and then the Packers again. They've got some easy games in the middle, but they've got 5 or 6 tough games, and they're pretty much out of wiggle room. I think we agree that it's going to take 10-ish wins to get this. And if it's going to take 10 wins, man, that's a lot to get from the Vikings. I trust their coaching staff, and it's easier for me to say there's a possibility for JJ because we've seen so little of JJ. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen enough of everybody else to have a better idea of who they are. I feel like we have to remember JJ is still playing quarterback at the level most of us would expect of a quarterback in September of their rookie season, because that's where he is by game count.
I mean, it's still incomplete. Like, that's the report card for JJ McCarthy, is incomplete. And that's fine. And it's understandable based on the injuries and where he's been so far in his career. But that also is enough for me to say, sorry, it's incomplete. And it's also just not good enough for me in this edition of the NFC. Because I think 10 wins is maybe the line of demarcation. They're at 4-5 right now. Do you see 6 wins upcoming against the Bears, at Lambeau, at the Seahawks, at home against the Commanders, at the Cowboys, at the Giants, at home against the Lions, and then the Packers? There's a few in there, but I can't bank on it. I can't bank on 6 of those.
What I do know is that if they are a contender, they have the runway in front of it to prove it. That's the one thing we all know, is that if they belong in this conversation, they'll let us know. All right, speaking of conversations with players, we're going to have one next. Kimani Vidal going to join the show. We'll figure out exactly what's happening for the Chargers, for a back that's having a monster year so far. We'll talk to him next. Kimani Vidal has 386 yards rushing since taking over as the Chargers' starting running back, good for sixth most in the league in that time frame since he took over for Amari and Hampton. He has been absolutely crushing it, and he joins us right now. Welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. We're hanging out with Kimani Vidal. Hey, Kimani, thanks for your time, man. We appreciate you hanging out this morning. You were drafted in the 6th round in 2024, so you had to wait a minute to get this opportunity. What did you learn while you were waiting that's helped you now?
I would just say, like, I just use the time to my advantage and just continue to work. You know, a lot of times, a lot of guys get in that situation. They kind of like get in the funk and like, oh, I'm never going to get my opportunity. So I just kept on working and preparing for, you know, my opportunity.
And I have to imagine it's the greatest blessing to hear your number called. And you got that opportunity more than any other times in your career on Sunday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 25 carries, a career high for you. What does that feel like in the moment? And then after the fact, the recovery period and the, oh my gosh, I just had a massive game kind of feeling. In the moment and after the fact, how does it feel coming off a career game?
In the moment, I mean, obviously it feels, I mean, it just feels crazy, you know, just being out there and, you know, just getting in the flow of the game and playing as much as I do. Um, and then like just after the game, you know, I have a routine and, you know, I've been doing it since I was on practice squad, kind of the same, you know, what I was talking about earlier, preparing and being ready. So I just believe in my routine and yeah, I just take it week by week.
So, Kimani, walk me through that moment, you know, from the practice squad to all of a sudden realizing, like, this is your ball now. This is your opportunity. What goes through your mind when you find out and you figure out, hey, like, this team's about to lean on me, especially in this offense. I'm going to be a huge part of why we win, why we lose. Like, what goes through your mind when that sinks in?
You know, I don't think really about the outcome of the game. I'm just trying to just give it my all, give it my best every opportunity, every carry, every play, and you know I just go from there.
So what's it going to be like for you with Omarion? Because Omarion's going to be back soon. Obviously, running back rooms get tight, right? Like, you guys know each other. You work together every day. So he'll be back at some point. What's that dynamic look like for you?
I mean, I have no idea like specifically what it'll look like. Um, you know, it'll be great to have him back. You know, he's a heck of a player. And I mean, when he's back, we'll really be rolling by then because we'll both be fresh.
Yeah, he's been banged up a little bit. Obviously, Najee Harris was banged up a little bit. The offensive line has been struggling with some injuries. And I know for you as a player, everyone in the locker room, you block out the noise. You don't listen to what people are saying. But there have been some doubters out there saying that with the injuries that your team has suffered, that the Chargers aren't legitimate contenders. What would you have to say to people that say that?
I would say as long as 10 is on the field, we're good, honestly. We have a chance anytime he's on the field.
What makes him special?
Say that again.
What makes him special?
Just the his playmaking ability. He's like an eraser on the field. You know, if anyone else makes a mistake, he's able to erase it and just like almost like it's nothing too. He's tough. He's resilient. You know, he's able to get out and scramble, which has been huge for us. And I mean, he's off the field. He's a great person too.
Yeah, he is absolutely electric. No Charger pun intended there to watch on the field. But what about off the field? You know, what is he like as a leader in the locker room? What's his personality like? What do we not know about Justin Herbert?
I mean, obviously you have to be smart in the league. He's incredibly smart. He's a pretty funny guy. He's pretty chill, really. You know, he doesn't really do much off the field, really. He's just a good guy.
All right, so let's pretty chill. I mean, I don't know how I'd describe Coach Harbaugh. You tell me. Give me your best Coach Harbaugh story. He's an interesting dude, right? Like, so give me your best Harbaugh story.
Actually, This story I actually heard when I was back in high school. He had my high school like quarterback at the time had went on a visit to Michigan, and like they did all the things, toured around, went around, and at the end they were just sitting in his office, and like they weren't saying anything. They were just sitting there. And then Coach Harbaugh goes, "Well, if you're gonna be a quarterback, you gotta be able to talk." And yeah.
That's awesome. I every Harbaugh story I feel like I hear, I feel lucky because they're all so funny, they're all so quirky. Absolutely love it. You spent your college career at Troy. You know, when you watch a game on Sunday, you see a lot of the Ohio States and the Alabamas and the Georgias and these big time programs. What is it like for you to represent not just Troy, but also the group of five in some of these smaller schools?
It means the world to me. It's just because there's less of us, it's like, you pay attention almost even more. I have other teammates that played with me while I was at Troy, and I follow them like every week. I'm like, oh, what happened in their game, and it's great to kind of have like, I guess the that touch of it, and especially like, I want to play against them. The guys I play with at Troy, just cause, but I mean, it's just great to have that, honestly.
Is there somebody, Kimani, that you get to trash talk though? Because like trash talking in locker rooms, like Alabama guys are trash talking Georgia guys. Like who are Troy guys trash talking? Like are there other group of five guys you're going at?
Nah, I mean, not really. I mean, you'll see like every now and then you'll see like a Georgia Southern guy maybe, but he's on his eighth season, and you're like, I wasn't there, or it'll be like, oh, he transferred to somewhere else, especially now. Um, so there's not a lot of guys that you really kind of play against and really get the trash talk all the way into the league, and you know from there. But it is what it is.
Save the trash talking for on the field. And
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
there's so many kids around the Alabama area growing up Troy fans that look up to you and they want to be you when they grow up. When you were a kid, who was your favorite running back?
Adrian Peterson. He was my favorite running back.
What
Yeah,
was
it's
it
a good
about him
one.
that you loved?
I don't know. He just looked cool on the field. Like he made guys miss. He was fast. I mean, he just had it all, honestly.
So
And it is
one thing that
fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating because we haven't had a running back or any other position that's not quarterback win league MVPs since Adrian Peterson did it over a decade ago. Are we as a football society not giving enough love to the running back position?
I definitely think so. With Jonathan Taylor, what he's doing right now, it should like it
Balling.
shouldn't even be anywhere close, honestly. It's hard to say because of what Saquon did last year, and he didn't even end up winning MVP. So it's like, well, if you look at that, it's like, well, it's like, what are the limits on it? Like, what if you rush for 3,000 yards? What are you gonna say then? So it is what it is. He's having a heck of a season this year. So, hopefully he's able to get MVP.
we all learned a lot about you on Sunday Night Football. Mike Tirico pointed out a few times in the broadcast that your great uncle is Hank Aaron. What was that like? That's something I didn't know about you, Kimani. What was that like for you growing up?
I mean, it was great to have someone like that, like in my corner. And the thing is, like, I grew up and I kind of like I didn't know that he was famous. I just knew him as my great uncle. But then, like, as I got older, I was like, hey, like, this house is kind of big. He's got a lot of like stuff around here that looks like baseball, and he's got a lot of a lot of people around him, and like it's like he had this energy about him that like I was like he's not like a normal person really. And then I mean he told me countless stories of him in the league, and he always came to my games too, which was great.
Was there a consideration for you ever to play baseball instead?
Uh, Actually, no, not really. I mean, once I played football, I knew what I wanted to do.
What was it about football? What made you fall in love with football?
I don't know. I think it was just like the physicality of it.
Mhm.
I had only watched baseball at that time, and it was just at that time it was just boring to me. So I think that's really what it was. And then I don't know. I just love everything about football. The wearing the pads, you look cool.
That is true.
And yeah, yeah.
So I'm always interested in guys that play. You work so hard for so many years, for so long to get to the point. What was the first moment where you looked around on the field and you thought, hell yeah, I made it? Like all of the sacrifice, all the work. This is the I made it aha moment. What was that first one for you?
Um, I'd probably say like uh it's really like levels to it almost. Like, I knew I could play like my rookie year, after I got my first touchdown. Then I was like this year when I got cut and I was put on practice squad, I was like, man, I don't know if this is like long term for me. Like I don't know how this is gonna look. Then, I start playing. I'm like, man, like I'm kind of balling. Um, but I wouldn't even say like it was the first 100-yard game. It was like the Vikings game where I really felt like I was like, man, like yeah, I'm here.
It's awesome and it's inspiring and it's incredible to watch. I always love guys that persevere through a lot and get to where they are. It's fun to watch you just go out and crush it this year, man. Congratulations on the success. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be watching the rest of the Chargers season. Hope you go out and have a great year, brother. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Kimani.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kimani Vidal hanging out with us in Caroline. It's just such a Caroline. It's such a cool moment to see, somebody that in the league, out of the league, practice squad, and then come in and have this level of impact. And it's just a reminder that there are so many capable and talented and amazing players that just need a shot. And when they get a shot and they take advantage of it, I don't know. I think it's one of the most beautiful things about the NFL.
And I think it's also a message that we can talk about, first overall picks or sixth or seventh round picks, that so much of success in the NFL is right place, right time. And I think for a running back that is still, working to hit his stride and to hit his ceiling, I look at Jim Harbaugh as being one of the best coaches in the NFL, to come up in and to develop from a guy that prioritizes the offensive line, a guy that prioritizes running the football, that it felt like Kimani Vidal, it's his coming out party at the moment. And we get to watch it, and it's because he's in the right place with the Chargers at the right time with the right head coach.
Appreciate getting him to hang out with us this morning. Great morning so far. All right, coming up, new speculation in the NBA that could rock one team. We'll tell you about some breaking speculation out there coming up next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Mark Stein tweets out, Nico Harrison's exit from the Mavericks as GM after 4+ seasons is regarded as imminent and could happen as soon as today. At the Stein line has learned. That's some breaking speculation as we sit here right now on what's going to happen for Nico. And the fire Nico chants are daily. The Mavs beginning of the season has been an abject disaster. And I get this. Like, Mavs fans are doing cartwheels in the street saying, finally, good glory, he's gone. We don't want him anymore. Okay, now what? Like, what happened in the first 2 weeks of the season that was so much different than what any realist could have expected to begin with? I mean, fire Nico chants were happening all summer. Fire Nico chants were happening at random events around Dallas. Fire Nico chants are happening in the arena. But if you're ownership and if you're the team president, you're the team governor, and you're looking around, what has changed in the first 2 weeks of the season from what your expectation was? AD hasn't been healthy. Shocking. All right. Cooper Flagg is not suddenly winning you basketball games because checks, notes, rookies don't usually do that anyway. Like, you're in a tough West. I just, yes, Nico Harrison should not have traded Luka, end point. Like, but if you didn't fire him when he traded Luka and you didn't fire him all summer and you didn't do anything about it all year, now 2 weeks into the season when it's starting poorly, like, who are you going to bring in that's going to suddenly fix anything? Caroline, this makes no sense to me.
Firing Nico Harrison doesn't bring Luka Doncic back to Dallas. Just want to send that message out to all Mavs fans that are doing cartwheels in the streets. That I think that the Luka Doncic trade was so bad that it was a fireable offense when it happened. And then the Mavs got magically bailed out, getting the first overall pick and getting in on the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes. Like, that was, I felt like, the life raft for Nico Harrison. But to anyone that thought that Cooper Flagg was going to come in and give you Luka Doncic-like production and results on day one by November 11th is delusional. If the Mavs continue down this trajectory, if Cooper Flagg continues to struggle, if Anthony Davis continues to stay injured, and the Mavs completely miss out on the playoffs and have a higher likelihood of going back-to-back with the first overall pick than they do finding themselves in the postseason, then fine. Then we can have that conversation. I just don't know why November 11th is the sweet spot, is the day that November is the time to move on from your general manager. Give it some time. Let it breathe. Let Cooper Flagg figure out how to play basketball in the NBA. Cooper Flagg's 18 years old. Like, I don't think anyone should be shocked and dumbfounded by Cooper Flagg not being an all-star on day one or week one or month one. Give it some time. Like, I think that there is a chance, a possibility, hell, even a likelihood that Cooper Flagg figures things out, that Cooper Flagg is a superstar in this league, that the Mavs have yet their next superstar. That's not going to come to fruition on November 11th, and firing Nico Harrison isn't going to microwave that process. I don't disagree with the decision to move on from Nico Harrison because of the Luka Doncic trade. I just disagree with the decision to do it today on November 11th. I do not think that the Mavs are better off today or tomorrow, whenever they fire Nico Harrison, than they were with Nico Harrison. The timing feels weird.
If you were going to fire him for the Luka trade, you should have already done that. Like, now you're going to ask an interim to come in while you find the new guy, and then we're going to have this whole conversation about what's the structure going to look like for the organization for him, and what's it mean for Kidd, and what are we going to do for the coaching staff, and how we're going to build the whole organization. And also, through all of this, like, I love the fact that everybody's just putting the Luka trade at Nico's feet. Like, there's a single GM in the history of sports that has the power to trade Luka Doncic without asking their bosses about it. Like, if the whole thing
is a move you make without ownership.
100%. Like, there's not a chance. There's not a chance that the governors, the team ownership group of the Mavs, that everybody woke up one day and said, wait, Nico traded Luka? I had no idea. You run these things up the ladder. Like, at some point, everybody that wears a Mavericks polo or, wears their suit in Mavericks colors into the arena that's part of the team, part of the organization, had something to do with the Luka trade. So if you're angry, I get it, Mavs fans. I get why you're angry at Luka getting traded. I would be too. I get why it feels hopeless. I understand that. As I've often said as a football fan, I remember where I was the day that Khalil Mack got traded, and it hurt my heart. It hurts my heart to this day to think a Hall of Famer was let go from a team for nothing. I understand why you feel angst for it, but you're firing Nico like he did this by himself. And you're firing Nico 2 weeks into a season that doesn't look good, like somebody else is going to come up and clean the damage up and then make you competitive with Oklahoma City. Like, you got to look in the mirror at some point. That ain't going to happen. So if you decided at the end of the season, which would have been the perfect time, the end of the season, you're like, hey, we made some transactions. We're just going to start fresh. We're going to start all the way over. We wouldn't even be talking about Nico right now. You could have done it then, but you didn't. You went through the draft process. You drafted Cooper Flag. You put Nico up in front of a microphone over and over and over again. This screams like no matter how incompetent Nico's trade was, and I think it was incompetent. I can't speak to whether he's incompetent, but I think he made an incompetent transaction. No matter how incompetent that transaction is, Mavericks ownership looks absolutely ignorant in every way that they've handled everything that Nico has done. From the day that they allowed the trade to the way that they propped him up afterwards and said nothing on their own, forcing him to be the meat shield over and over and over again, to letting them start the season, to now firing Nico. Mavs ownership is telling you that they don't know what the hell they're doing because they are chasing their tail, and that's not an effective way to run a franchise. You missed your window, and now you're firing late, and all you do is look ridiculous in the process.
Overly reactive. That's what this move is. This move is overly reactive. And okay, we have a tweet from Shams, breaking news from Shams, who of course is more plugged into the NBA than anybody, that this is going to happen, that the Dallas Mavericks will fire Nico Harrison. If I'm a Mavs fan, here's what I'm concerned about. There is a former NFL general manager that, used to work with a lot of people that you and I both used to work with in Nashville. And he said, if you listen to the fans, pretty soon you'll be sitting with the fans, which means if you listen to the cries and the outrage from the fans, you will lose your job. It feels like Dallas Mavericks ownership was listening too much to the fans instead of taking a step back and realizing what is best for their organization. Because you cannot tell me that firing Nico Harrison on November 11th, which from Shams is breaking news that is going to happen, that the Mavs are better off today than they were yesterday. The Luka Doncic trade was horrific. They did not get nearly enough in return for Luka Doncic. It was bad. It'll go down in history as one of the worst trades in the NBA. I believe that wholeheartedly. But what is so different about that trade today than it was when it happened? Why not fire him when it happened? And if you thought it was such a bad trade, then why did ownership and the powers that be and the shot callers in Dallas allow it to go through? This just feels day late, dollar short, and overreactive.
No, I mean, if you catch your partner cheating on you and then you decide a year and a half later you're going to break up with them for it, like that just feels like weird timing. Like Nico blew whatever he was going to blow out of this the day that he traded Luka. And to some point, I would say the old adage, so what, now what? All right, if your goal was to fire Nico Harrison, to bring in a new GM, my question is, now what? How do you believe that the Mavs will get fixed between now and the end of this regular season? What do you genuinely believe can be accomplished that will change the fortunes of the Dallas Mavericks right now? And then if the answer to that is nothing, we just want to get Nico out of the room. Okay, well, then you had so many opportunities to do that. Doing it now, it's not going to change any of that. Like, what's going to make the Mavericks better over the course of the next several years is probably some level of roster reconstruction, right? Like, and it was a mistake. To pretend that you could rely on AD was a mistake. But that mistake's already been made. So whoever comes in the building next is just going to inherit a mistake. You're asking somebody else to start cleaning up the mess, which is fine. The mess has to be cleaned up at some point. But you could have started that earlier before the draft. You could have started that all summer. You didn't. And now you can't really do anything about where you are today. There's nothing you're going to accomplish during the regular season that's going to change where you lie in the lexicon of the West. So if you know that you're dead man walking, I don't understand what they think is going to happen. Fans that chanted for fire Nico, how do you think it's going to change the game that you're going to watch next week? And until somebody can answer that question, how it changes next week, how it changes next month, and how it makes you actually bona fide contenders against teams like OKC and the Lakers that you sent Luka to, like, I realize it feels gross and it feels icky, but going in and changing something about it now isn't going to change the fact that the Lakers look like they could compete for a title and the Mavericks look like they're competing for a lottery pick.
And again, I go back to, because in that alone, people might say the pushback might be, well, then why are you anti-firing the GM? It's because firing the GM doesn't undo what was did. And your original question is, what saves the Mavericks? What saves the Mavericks is Cooper Flag. What saves the Mavericks is Cooper Flagg's development. Is Cooper Flagg developing into a certified superstar in the NBA? Because I could see the gears turning. I could see the justification that Cooper Flagg can turn into a younger, at the time, in better shape and cheaper Luka Doncic. So that's your life preserver. Like, that's what saves this team. What saves this team is a future superstar who turns into your new and your next and your less expensive Luka Doncic. Why can't we give Cooper Flagg time to turn into that? He's not going to turn into that in November. He's probably not going to turn into that in December. He might not turn into that in January. But I think Fitz, like, call me absolutely crazy, I think there is a possibility and maybe even a probability and a likelihood that Cooper Flagg can turn into that. And whether it was by pure luck of the draw or what, Nico Harrison was the guy who drafted Cooper Flagg. It was the easiest draft pick in the history of time to take Cooper Flagg with the number 1 overall pick. It was inevitable. Whoever had that pick was going to take Cooper Flagg, but Nico Harrison's still the GM that drafted him. Now, I don't think Nico Harrison is some sort of, chess not checkers. I don't think Nico Harrison is some sort of genius, that was his master plan all along. Frankly, I think Nico Harrison got lucky. But I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't understand this move today.
Look at this Shams tweet here. The Mavericks are firing Harrison 9 months after the jarring and stunning Luka Doncic trade, a move for which Dumont, the team governor, took accountability and accepted as a mistake in a courtside interaction with the fan on Monday night. Let's be clear. Dumont's not taking any accountability. Dumont's firing somebody. And again, I cannot stress this enough. Luka Doncic was not traded in the middle of the night without everybody in the organization knowing what was going down. So if the answer today is finally you have accountability for the trade of Luka Doncic, no, you do not. You got accountability from the one person that is easily a fall guy for the trade of Luka Doncic. How often do we talk about this across all sports? Bad teams are bad because owners suck. Owners had to approve some sort of a deal for Luka Doncic. And now the owners have fired the very person that is their protection in these situations, the GM that's not doing this without ownership approval. So if the answer is accountability, that's a joke. Any answer of we fired Nico for accountability without also, firing yourself, which you can't do because you own a team. So what you did is you went and you fired the very person that you gave the okay to make the trade with. That's the asinine part of all of this. Nico was not running around like a bandit in the night suddenly trading him. The owners that approved it have now fired him, and they're going to call that accountability. It's all a joke. This Carolina, this is a joke.
The most asinine part of all of this isn't the trade of Luka Doncic, which was asinine. Isn't the fact that this firing is coming 9 months after the move happened. It's the last part of that tweet. Dumont took accountability and accepted as a mistake in a courtside interaction with a fan on Monday night. That is the most damning part of all of this. That's the most embarrassing part of all of this, I think. If I'm a Mavericks fan, I'm so embarrassed that this came on the heels of the team governor talking to a fan courtside. What are we doing? What did I just say? When you listen to the fans, pretty soon you'll be sitting with the fans. It is incompetence and it is embarrassing leadership when you listen to what the fans have to say. That's, I think, the worst part of all of this, and I think would give me the most amount of impending doom if I'm a Mavs fan, is business is being conducted with fans courtside. That's embarrassing.
Caroline, even if the answer is they can't sustain an empty arena for the entire season because fans are going to revolt. If you are Dumont and the rest of the ownership group of the Mavericks and you didn't anticipate that, then you shouldn't own a team. Like, that's every single step. And look, whatever anybody thinks one way or the other of Mark Cuban, not here to have that conversation. Today, Mark Cuban has made it very clear recently that he never wanted to be taken out of part of the decision-making process, and then he was. So he's made it very clear that this new governorship group, this new ownership stake, is absolutely coming in, and they are giving they're doing things their own way without any input. Those are the people to blame. This is just such a wild statement to me that, like, was ownership surprised that fans are revolting? Was ownership surprised that fans are probably asking for refunds on season tickets? Was ownership surprised that fans don't want to be in the building? Our owners, our team governors, surprised that they are being confronted by fans on the sidelines? Would they even be surprised if they were confronted by a fan at Starbucks? If the answer to any of that is that you were surprised, you shouldn't be allowed to own a professional sports team, because you went out and you traded one of the most marketable, incredible stars your franchise has ever seen and in the NBA currently to another organization that's out there on the cusp of trying to actually win a championship. You made the wrong move months ago. You made the wrong move months ago in the biggest, most glaring way possible, and now you're consistently getting egg thrown at you because of it. You just got to stand up and accept that. You fire Nico Harrison, that's great. You fire Nico Harrison, it's not going to change this season. It's not going to change that the decision makers still allowed Luka to get out the door. It's not going to change that the same people that said yes to the Luka trade, team governors, are the people that will say yes to whatever is happening next. Like, if your answer was fire Nico, you're aiming all of your criticism at the wrong people, because the people that were stupid enough to decide to do that are still in the building. And guess what? Now they're going to pick your next GM. And that GM may decide he wants to pick a different coach. That coach may want to run a different offense. Cooper Flagg may not like that offense. The Mavs may not like where that's going. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're, I don't know, the Pelicans that have wasted whatever they had with Zion. You're the you're the Memphis Grizzlies that can't get anything done with Ja. All of a sudden you just got another young pick that's sitting around because your ownership is incompetent. Nico Harrison did a stupid thing in trading Luka. But, man, it's just firing this doesn't solve any of that.
Yeah, and I'm not going to tell fans how to fan. If you were the one chanting Nico Harrison, then that is your right as a fan, because I don't think any of us can deny that trade will go down in the Mount Rushmore of horrific, dumb, stupid moves in the history of the NBA. I think we can all agree that is true. But that's also not a move that Nico Harrison makes if he isn't okay with the consequences of it. Like, I don't think when you're a GM, you can make the kind of just stunning move that was and not be okay with the fact that might ultimately be your job. Because with great risk can come great reward. It can also be your job. Like, maybe Nico Harrison thought, we'll draft the next Luka Doncic and I'll look like an absolute genius for this. But you also can't make that move and say, I have to be okay with losing my job because of this. Nico Harrison had to have understood that when he traded Luka Doncic. No? Like, surely that was going 100%. Through his mind that this might ultimately be my job. And it is.
Nico Harrison was given a contract extension June 4th of 2024 by the Dallas Mavericks. A year and a half ago, June 4th of 2024, he was given a contract extension. Then he was given the permission to ship out Luka. And now he's fired. And it just shows you the same people that gave him the contract extension are the same people that trusted him to trade Luka, and they're the same people that are now firing. It's wild. It's wild. All right. We will continue to get you caught up. Make sure you're following Yahoo Sports across all of our platforms. There will be plenty more on the Mavericks and the change as the breaking news from Shams and others at this point. It appears that at 10 a.m. Central, Nico Harrison will be fired from the Dallas Mavericks. As we get more information, you'll get more information. In the meantime, coming up next, we will get back to football. It's that time of the week. Frank's got his rankings. We'll figure out how much we can trash him coming up next. Is that time of the week for the power rankings, or in our case, the power FRANKings, as Frank Schwab joins us right now, and we get you the power rankings, like every great ranking, from 1 to 32. We will figure out exactly what Frank has botched this week. Let's waste no time. We'll pull up the top 4, where I'm sure we will see the Rams or the Seahawks at number. Oh no, we will not. The Philadelphia Eagles sit at number 1 after that abject of a disaster of an offense that Frank apparently doesn't care. Frank, why do you hate the NFC West?
I think the NFC West is well represented in my top 4. They're half of the top 4, so that's fine. Look, the Eagles, everybody's talking about their offense, and that's fine because that's what we do with the Eagles. We just focus on whatever's negative. Their defense showed up for the first time on Monday night and just absolutely shut off Green Bay's water. That's good for them going forward. Yeah, the offense was bad. I grant that, but overall, if the defense is going to play like that, I mean, it's lights out. Like, the Eagles are the best team in football. They're the most reliable team in football. The defense looked great last night for the first time since really last year's Super Bowl. Eagles are going to win that division by like 6 games. Yes, you could dwell on a negative about the Eagles if you want, but I choose to be positive. Fitz, you know me, I'm always Mr. Positive around here. So Eagles defense showed up and solidified, of all things, their ranking of number 1 for me. It was an ugly one, but it was impressive.
I just want to say, for the record, Caroline on the show yesterday said, and I close quote, because this isn't an actual quote, it's just close to the spirit, Frank better have the Seahawks or the Rams as number 1 in his power rankings. Caroline, I mean, come at your boy.
Yeah, I mean, I know one coach in the NFL that wouldn't go for it on 4th and 6 with 30 seconds left from their opponent's 35-yard line, and that's Sean McVay. He wouldn't do that. I know another team that has a pretty good defense, and that's the Rams. And I know a team that can actually score more than 10 points, and that's the Rams. And the Seahawks, for that matter. Walk me through why the Eagles and not the Seahawks or the Rams, who are also 2 incredibly complete teams.
Yeah, they're both. Look, these 4 teams are really, really good. We have just completely skipped the Colts, by the way, which is kind of appropriate because we're just we're just gonna ignore the Colts all year. That they just keep winning games, and Jonathan Taylor should be the MVP and whatnot. But look, the Seahawks are very good, but we do have to acknowledge they have blown 2 home games. I mean, they did lose some games. The Rams, they lost to the Colts. They can't be ahead of the Colts, right? Like, or they? So it's just one of those, like, all 4 of these teams could be number 1. They really could. The Colts have a great argument for it. The Rams are very balanced. I think Matthew Stafford's playing the best ball of his career, which is saying something. The Seahawks are incredible. I did think about putting the Seahawks number 1. I did, because I've been riding for them for weeks now. I'm saying this is the secret. I think the secret's out. Like, the secret is out that the Seahawks are one of the best teams in football and Super Bowl ready. So, yeah, any of these 4 could have been number 1. I don't think there's really a lot of big difference between these teams.
Okay, well, then let's go to the next 4 teams that Frank probably hates in the NFL. The Chiefs at 5, Lions at 6, Broncos at 7, and Patriots at 8.
Oh.
Okay. I unfortunately watched that Thursday night game with the Broncos. Unfortunately, we all had to watch that game. That was disgusting. That was terrible. That set football back generations, Frank. The Broncos at 7?
The defense is still there. The defense played great. The defense has played great all year. I've said over and over, we're going to repeat this just so you know how confounding the Broncos are. I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it again. The Broncos 2 losses this year. At the Colts with no time left on the clock. At the Chargers with no time left on the clock. That's it. 2 very, very, very good football teams. That's how close the Broncos are to being undefeated right now. But yes, the offense, will it show up? Will it please? I had to knock the Broncos down a little bit. I'd been the high person on them. I heard this from Denver radio, that I was the highest person of anybody that does power rankings on the Broncos. And it kind of put me in a bad situation because I'm like, can I really knock them down after a win? And yes, the answer is yes. Yes, I can, because that offense looks so bad. A great showdown coming up in Denver on Sunday. Chiefs at Broncos. Think of it this way. If the Broncos win that game, they're 3.5 games ahead of the Chiefs with 7 to go. Like, the Chiefs' run of AFC West titles might be over at that point. So we'll see. But at some point, the Broncos have to show up on offense, I guess. Like, they're 8-2 with this trash offense. So maybe they don't. Maybe this is just the 2000 Ravens, and they're just, or the 2015 Broncos for that matter, who are just going to ride a defense all the way to some special things.
I mean,
here's what I'll push back. a little bit, Frank. You bring up the narrow losses, and that's fair. Narrow losses to the Colts and the Chargers, two good teams. I can also bring up the very narrow wins over bad teams. Barely beating the Raiders, taking 33 fourth quarter points against the Giants to beat them by 1 point. For every game they've barely lost, there's also an equal number of games they've barely won.
Yeah, that's why they're really, really tough to figure out. Really tough. But this we do have to acknowledge this defense is top 3 in the NFL. Like it is phenomenal. If the offense could just play at an average level, man, I wouldn't want to play this team in January. That defense is nasty.
I don't disagree, but as we bring up the next group, like you in your next grouping, you have the Bills, the Packers, the Ravens, and the Chargers in 9 through 12. The hard part for me when you look at that is like right now, you know me, Frank, I always say this, on a neutral field, and I'm taking as bad as the Bills have been, that I don't trust the Broncos to beat the Bills. I don't
trust the Bills? You trust the Bills right now?
I don't trust.
Did you watch?
I don't trust Bo Nix at all. I don't trust Bo Nix to do any. I trust Bo Nix to throw to the other team more than I trust Bo Nix to throw. I trust Bo Nix to miss like 4 key throws a game. I don't trust. I trust the Ravens
only
more
4.
Than I trust the Broncos. Yeah, well, that's
I always use this term if I'm doing my honest power rankings, like the power rankings I squirrel away for my dabbling purposes every week. Ravens might be top 5. I'm going to say this right now. What's the date today? It's November 11th. I will say this: the Ravens are winning the AFC. I'm not the AFC North. The Ravens are winning the AFC. They're the only team I trust. I think they are going to get on a roll here. They are going to win their next 5 games. Look at their schedule. They're going to win the AFC North by 3 games. Like this is a done deal with the AFC North. Now we're just talking about bigger things. I think it's going to be karma that Lamar Jackson, when they're front runners, when they're the 1 seed, when they're the best team, they can't get it done. This season, when they started 1-5, is the year Lamar Jackson gets to a Super Bowl. That's why I'm planting that flag right now. The Ravens are going to end up winning the AFC. I would have, if I was up big, I would have had the Ravens in my top 5. I think they're one of the 5 best teams in football. I just couldn't because the record doesn't come close to reflecting that yet.
Oof. I like it, Frank. I like it. Let's get to our next group of teams. We've got the Bucks, Bears, 49ers, and the Houston Texans. Okay. The Bears above the 49ers? How much do we really trust the Bears?
You guys, okay, guys, you two.
Like, are the Bucks and Bears like that close in terms of teams? Like Bucks and Bears playing a neutral field tomorrow. I think the Bucks are 6.5 point favorites.
The Bears have 4 wins over trash teams on the last play of the game, basically. Like,
the Bucks have a lot of. If you remove some of those last second wins on the Bucks barely beat the Jets at home. Okay, like I will say this, you guys, I love you both. You know that. Defense matters in the NFL too, okay? You guys are just, this offense stinks. Defense does matter. Not that the Bears are any great shakes on defense, but they won 6 of 7 games. They find a way to win. I don't love the Bears here. I really don't, but the teams behind them, the 49ers on defense are bad right now. They're bad. Like this, it's not just, this is critical mass for the 49ers on defense. They just can't stop anybody. And it's going to, but I will say this, the 49ers next 4 games, if you look at their schedule, they're going to be favored by probably a touchdown in each of those games. They could easily be 10-4. And one of those teams I just have no trust in because their defense can't stop anybody.
You have the Texans up 4 spots here. And I don't know what the hell I think of the Texans. Like I think that's going to have a lot to do with who's
defense is great. Capital G, great.
But I think that has something to do with the teams that are below the Texans. Let's pull up that next list because the Steelers, the Vikings, the Jags, and the Panthers. And it's like, I mean, this just feels like some of this portion here is disaster's row. I'll take the Panthers out of it. But like the Steelers underperforming.
Why? Why are you taking the Panthers out of it? The Panthers lost at home to the Saints.
No, but for my point, like the Steelers, the Vikings, and the Jags at different times this year have had big expectations. And all 3 of them find themselves now just sort of not even relevant to this conversation. I mean, I don't think any of the 4 teams listed in this bracket are actually good football teams.
No, not at all. The Steelers, I actually regretted putting the Steelers all the way up to 16. And I heard about it. They're only 16. No, they're bad. They're a bad football team. They're not winning the AFC North. They're not making the playoffs. And then we're going to have a real conversation about Mike Tomlin. Finally, a real conversation. Not this like, fire Mike Tomlin because he made the playoffs and didn't win a game. Like, no, like you blew a big lead in the division and it might be time for Mike Tomlin. I don't know. We'll see what ownership says. But yes, all the teams on this list, I'm out on the Jaguars. The Jaguars losing that game against the Texans was just confounding. And Trevor is just not it. He's just not it. It's just not happening. We got to acknowledge that at this point. Bryce Young ain't happening either. Like the Panthers, everybody got a little excited about, sorry, Caroline. Everybody got a little excited about the Panthers. Ooh, the Panthers, they're 5-4. And then you go home and you lose to the Saints. I think Bryce Young had 121 yards passing or something like that against the Saints. Like this is our disappointment. You're on detention. All 4 of these teams. Get out of my sight because you are so disappointing. You should be better than you are, but you're not. You're just not. None of these teams are any good.
No apologies necessary, because when you make Tyler Shuck look like he could be one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the National Football League, you deserve to lose and to drop 2 spots. I do want to go back to your Mike Tomlin point, though, because I said that at the beginning of the season, if the Steelers miss the playoffs, then we need to have legitimate conversation. I don't know why for so long the Mike Tomlin hot seat conversation has felt like it's a no-no word, or that we can't talk about it. Where are the Steelers right now? Because I can't figure out what this team is. All I can come up with is they're not a very good team. Is it time for the Steelers to just clean house? Start over?
Might be, and I've always said, and I'll say a million times, the Steelers' next coach is very unlikely to be better than Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin has a Hall of Fame resume. I'm sorry for those who hate him. Like, there's a lot of Steelers fans who just want him out the door. Fine, whatever. But he's got a Hall of Fame resume. He's probably going to make it there someday. But at some point, things just got to change. And if you blow this big of a lead, it's not just missing the playoffs. If they would have just missed the playoffs in a normal way, like you just kind of mediocre all season, go 8-9, this team is going to be blowing. What they were up, 4 games on the Ravens at some point? Like it's a disaster for Pittsburgh to lose it this way. And the offense looked broken. The defense is just living off turnovers. If they can't turn you over, they can't stop you. I thought that loss on Sunday night against the Chargers was eye-opening. It's like, the Steelers just, I don't care what their record is. This is just not a good football team.
Tomlin's going to look good in silver and black next year on the sidelines. All right, the next grouping. Yeah, there we go. The next grouping, the Falcons, Cowboys, Bengals, Cardinals. I mean, look, we're at this. Will the return of Joe Burrow make a big difference to where you think the Bengals are, presuming he gets back by Thanksgiving?
I don't think Joe Burrow plays defensive end. I don't think so. I'll have to look. I mean, maybe he does a Travis Hunter.
He could. Have we asked him?
He might, He might. They might be asking him to, because that defense is pathetic. I see this like Joe Burrow's going to save the Bengals. Like the offense really hasn't been the problem at all. Like the Bengals offense is not the culprit here. Joe Burrow's not making that. He will make the offense better. He's Joe Burrow. He's unbelievable, right? But what is the offense going to score 70 every week? Like Joe Flacco's played far beyond my expectations. It ain't the offense, folks. The offense, Joe Burrow comes back and the offense is a little bit better than it has been. They're pretty much maxed out at this point because they're playing so well. It's the defense. The defense ain't stopping anybody. I said this on Inside Coverage yesterday. I just worry Joe Burrow's coming back too soon and the organization is screwing this up. I don't trust the Bengals here. Joe Burrow's a tough dude. I respect him. I know he wants to get back and all that, but at this, I'd rather see the Bengals just be the adults in the room and shut this down. Be better for 2026, because we ain't going anywhere with this defense anyway, Joe. Like just rest up and we'll try again next year.
Anyone who trusts the Bengals is wrong. Let's go to this next group. And we've got the Commanders, the Dolphins, the Giants, and the Jets. Nice little bump there for the crummy, crappy Dolphins after dominating the Bills. But I do want to touch on the Giants. We learned yesterday that Brian Daboll was fired as the head coach of the New York Giants. Surprise level reaction to that?
Maybe that it happened right this moment, but I'll tell you, I said this again, and as I covered yesterday, because I keep wanting to bring this up because we glossed over it when it happened. We all guffawed and we're like, oh, Brian Daboll said he was sorry. Everything's cool. When Brian Daboll against Philly on that Thursday night poked his head into the medical tent to check on Jackson Dart, who was getting checked for a concussion, and then was caught by the cameras screaming at the team doctor trying to get his quarterback back on the field, that's the moment he should have been fired. Because that showed I'm in self-preservation mode. I do not care about my rookie quarterback. Get it. Does he got a concussion or not? We don't know. We haven't done the thing. Get him out on the field. I need him on the field right now. That is the moment he should have been fired, because the Giants have a prize in Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart's good. Jackson Dart, I'm sorry. I don't care. Like, I'm not doing the whole, if he develops it. No. We've seen enough. Jackson Dart's a good football player. You have to protect that guy. He does not know. He can't do it for himself. He plays too recklessly. And it's endearing, right? That's part of the reason he has this juice, but he doesn't know how to slide. But what does Brian Daboll do? Design runs, let's call some more. Like, he was in self-preservation mode. Jackson Dart was going to be back in that blue tent before the end of the season a few times, if Brian Daboll is still the coach. So, at surprise level, a little bit, but I understand it completely. This was not about a 2-8 record. This was about Jackson Dart needs somebody better to look after him. And it wasn't Brian Daboll who was screaming at the team doctor on the sideline to get his quarterback back on the field when he's getting checked for a concussion.
Strong point by you, Frank. I honestly hadn't thought about it. That's a really good point by you. The last of the grouping, we'll pull it up, and I'll just say thanks, Frank. Thanks. I appreciate you not putting the Raiders at 32. I know it took a lot of constraint. There's always next week. There's plenty of time. I've got plenty of season left. Mike Tomlin, my next head coach, with the number 1 overall pick in the draft, he can get whatever quarterback he wants.
Oh, you ain't getting number 1 because the Titans ain't.
Come on, Frank.
Titans ain't winning.
This is the Fernando Mendoza grouping right here.
Yeah, right.
No, this is Fernando. In Fernando, we trust. We always trust Frank. He's even better than Fernando. Check out his power rankings on Yahoo Sports, obviously, and check Frank out on Inside Coverage. My friend, thanks for the time this morning. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you, guys.
Frank.
Great stuff from Frank. We'll continue to recap the power rankings throughout the course of the week. But again, if you're just tuning in, the breaking news today, it's now being reported everywhere. The Mavs are firing Nico Harrison 9 months after the Luka Doncic trade. We continue to hear more and more on Twitter, not the least of which is Mark Stein reporting as for what Nico Harrison's dismissal means for Anthony Davis's future in Dallas. They're being told that the Davis's agent, Rich Paul, has established a strong relationship with Mavs owner Patrick Dumont after February's trade. So they are in regular contact. That tells you that obviously Rich Paul is part of this conversation. That's not surprising to me, Caroline. I think most NBA agents are in these conversations all the time. Like NBA players and agents seem to know what's going on before even, back in the day it was Woj and now it's Shams. Even before they know, players and agents seem to know what's going on.
And there's always going to be a scapegoat. There's always going to be somebody that has to fall on the sword. And in this case, it's Nico Harrison. And I will go back to the fact that I don't understand this timing. I really don't. Look, trading Luka Doncic was a bad move, and it looks even worse now. But as we've pointed out, that's not a move that any GM in the league and any league in sports cannot make without the A-OK of ownership and the powers that be within an organization. So I don't think that the organization can really point to that as the reason why Nico Harrison is fired, because they gave it the green light. And it's also so early. It is November 11th. I don't even think it's fair to make true evaluations about teams until like Christmas. We need to give it time. We need to give Cooper Flagg, who's a rookie, he's an 18-year-old rookie, need to give him time to get acclimated to the NBA game. I just think the timing makes no sense other than just the Mavericks were feeling heat from, whether it was Rich Paul, whether it was the fan base, the Mavs were feeling heat and felt like they needed to make some change. And Nico Harrison was the one that has to answer for it and is the one that has to fall on the sword for it. That doesn't make the Mavs better off today than yesterday.
If the logic is AD's agent, Rich Paul's in communication, and that means that they're going to be comfortable trading AD, how much value are you getting back for Anthony Davis? I mean, that's one of the things that right now, part of the reason the Mavs suck so far this year is that, AD isn't really a part of what they're doing. So now all of a sudden it's like, okay, what do you really think? Because you got to get a matching salary and you're going to have to get some draft capital and you're going to have to start a long rebuild. What does that look like? And how much return can you even get for Anthony Davis? Like, this would all be the ironic.
Well, the Lakers got Luka Doncic
in
return for Anthony Davis. So maybe that's the return. Maybe the Mavs can say, hey, can we do a take back? Do you want AD back? We'll take Luka back now that he's skinny.
I mean, maybe he's from Chicago, so maybe they try and deal him to the Bulls because the Bulls are better than anybody expects so far. Maybe a team like Toronto wants to turn out and acquire him. Like, I just don't know. The ironic thing to me is that the Mavs would not be in this situation if AD playing for the Mavs was playing like the best of AD. And part of the reason they're in this situation is they don't have that version of AD yet, which also makes him even tougher to trade. So the very thing that would make him more tradable is if he came straight to Dallas and was like, wow, that's like peak AD. But if peak AD had been there, they wouldn't be so terrible. So I don't know which came first, the chicken or the eggs. Like, it's just, it again speaks to the fact that whatever was constructed is not easily deconstructed. And if it is, it's probably including a bunch of draft picks. And now you're starting a slow build around Cooper Flagg. It's interesting. Just remember, Wemby has been absolutely transcendent as a young player in the NBA. And until this year, how many games have the Spurs won? So if the answer is trade AD because you're going to build long term, you just got to understand that long term could take 2, 3, 4 years. Like, we have no idea.
And at that point, why would Klay Thompson be off the trading block? I would say if that you are within talks of trading AD, you're probably in talks of trading Klay Thompson and getting as much, draft capital as you can, as much as you can.
Trade everybody.
Whatever you can get in return. But let's remember that that's not a guarantee. That you have to have a trade partner for Klay Thompson and Anthony Davis. If I'm a general manager, I'm not necessarily racing to the phones for the efforts of Klay Thompson and Anthony Davis. There's no guarantee that you're going to get anything worth a damn in return. So you're kind of heading down a very slippery path of, one, pulling the plug on something that, we're still letting develop, and two, something that doesn't look that great that you're not going to get great return for.
Yeah, and that's also where, everybody in the league now knows it's a dumpster fire, and everybody's going to be trying to underpay for value in trade return also. Whatever the Mavs did in firing Nico, they had to have a plan of what it looks like next. I don't believe they just fire him to fire him. They have to know what's coming next. I know coming next, stick with Yahoo Sports all day. We'll continue to break down the breaking news for you. Come back to Yahoo Sports Daily tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching.